All right, good morning, everybody. Let's see if we're all set. It looks like we are. I think we're good. Yeah, okay. Welcome on in. We're starting to move ahead with our statistics here. So let's sort of touch base and see what's going on. So we've got, you just should have, hopefully, finished up the where you pick your groups, right? That would have happened, maybe Saturday, I guess that would have been due. So at some point, I'll go in there, I'll grade all those posts that are in there, and then you'll get credit. If you're going, oh, I never got in there, I didn't form my group, you can still do it, right? This generally happens every time where there's a few people who didn't get in their group for whatever reason. They were procrastinating or some kind of thing happened or their group already fell apart or whatever, and you're finding yourself right now in no group, and that's scary to you. So remember that you can form groups of 1, 2, or 3. A group of 1 means it's yourself. So if you, and I have students who do that every class, right? There are students who say, I think I work better by myself. I have my way of studying and it works really good for me. I really just want to do this by myself. You are welcome to do that. You are totally allowed to do that. Just know you're going to have less people to talk to when you are confused and when you are stuck, and then you're going to have to try to make it to my office hours, or you're going to have to try to get to the tutor center or something like that. But by all means, you are not forced to form a group with other people. You do what you think is best for you and your studying. I recommend that you form a group of at least one other person, maybe 2 other people, but that's totally up to you. So this usually works pretty successfully for anyone who has missed that opportunity to use the forums there to form a group, or maybe you posted in there and you still didn't quite form a group, right? You'll still get credit. If you went into the project groups and you left a legitimate posting in here, right? You didn't just say hi, but you left a legitimate post trying to either tell me you're working in a group by yourself or you were trying to form a group, you'll get those points. So even if you're not in a group, if you tried to form a group, you'll get your points for that. But if there are people in the class that need to form a group, what I've seen happen numerous times is that right now students will just do it in the chat. So anyone who's left and wants to form a group, just figure it out in chat right now. So whether you're in Zoom or on YouTube or whatever, throw it in chat and say, hey, I missed out on being in a group, or does anyone else still need a group, or does anyone want to form a group? And there's probably at least 2 people, I would guess, in the class that didn't end up in a group and are kind of nervous about it. And if you throw up an invitation and say, hey, does anyone want to work with me? Usually there's at least one other person who wants to do that. So, and maybe everyone formed groups. I haven't looked over the postings yet, but feel free to do that. That's a great use of the chat here during class, right? Which it's kind of interesting that that's the kind of thing that wouldn't work if we were in the classroom where I'm trying to lecture and then and then people are talking during it. But if right now, if you want to use the chat in order to form a group, feel free to go ahead and do that. So there's a question here about someone, me and Soso are in a group. Do we get our points for that? If you post it in here to form your groups, then you get points for the posting, right? Whenever we do these project updates, if you leave a legitimate posting in the discussion board, then you get the points for the discussion, right? And remember, every member should be leaving a post. In this case, you didn't have groups yet, but I'm still having my other class, even though, I've probably said it a dozen times. In the future, like when you get down here to the survey questions, if you look, because I literally had this last week, just remember, going forward, what's the first sentence of the directions here? Each group member must leave a posting in order to get credit. In other words, you get credit for you leaving the posting with the information that you're interested in. As far as the question up here, right? So if you missed the due date, then you kind of missed the cutoff. Missing 1 isn't going to be a big deal. It's not going to sink your grade or anything like that. Just going forward, make sure you get those done by the due dates. Okay, make sure you're getting those. So the next one. The next project discussion is October 5th. Make sure you have your stuff posted by October 5th. We have to keep the projects moving along. Otherwise, it means you have less time to work on your projects. And some people like to go ahead and work on their projects at the same time we're discussing those topics in class, which is the idea that you should be doing it. So we really want to make sure we get to that point in the next couple weeks where we can get that survey going. So, right, you can't, if you didn't post in here, then you missed out on that first one. Just make sure you hit the rest of them. There's a bunch of other ones, and then the actual project is worth somewhere in the neighborhood of half the points. So if you just missed this one, don't lose sleep over it. Just try to do really good from here on out, and you'll be fine. But make sure you're always leaving a posting. So I want to make this totally clear to everyone. Even if you're in a group going forward, all these ones that say project, each member should leave a legitimate posting. Otherwise, you're not going to get credit. The people who leave a posting will get credit. Okay? So like here for the survey questions, your group can decide. And this is probably actually better because otherwise sometimes I end up with duplicates in the survey and it gets kind of long. Say you've got your 5 questions. There's 3 people in the group. Split them up and say, okay, you post these 2 questions. You post these 2 questions. I'll post this 1 question. Boom. Everyone in the group gets credit then at that point, right? Everyone will get their points. I'm not going to judge each of you for not having 5 whole questions because I realize that the group has split them up, right? But what you don't want to do, what I don't want to see, because this actually works against you, is that you create the questions that way. So don't say, okay, you go figure out the categorical questions, you figure out the quantitative questions, I'll figure out the yes/no questions, because then what's happening is you're not getting experience with that other stuff, and then it shows. It shows in the project that you don't really know the part you didn't do. So you should be part of the discussion creating the quantitative questions. You should be part of the discussion creating the categorical questions. You should be part of the discussion creating the yes/no questions. Be part of the whole thing. But when it comes to actually reporting it here, to making a posting inside of here, then you can split them up however you want. But please don't split up the work. It actually is pretty obvious when you're doing your project at the end of the semester in the groups where they split up the work. Like you instead of splitting up the reporting of the work, they split up the work, and then I can tell, oh, this is the person in this group that did hypothesis testing. These other 2 people in the group, I can tell in their videos they don't really understand hypothesis testing because they told Larry to do the hypothesis testing, so Sarah and Jenny didn't do that part and they don't know how to do it. And then it's the same with other topics. Oh, I can tell that Sarah did the correlation part and Larry and Jenny don't understand that part in their videos. So it actually hurts your grade significantly. So what you want to do is make sure that everyone in the group understands everything you're all doing, but then you'll each make separate postings in here, right? So let me check the chat here. Okay, so let me pause because there's a question. So yep, so there's someone, if there's anyone on Zoom still looking for a group member, it looks like there's somebody on YouTube still looking for a group. So if you're on Zoom and you're looking for a group, maybe hop over into YouTube and see if you can join that. So Sitali, you have a question? Oh, okay. CC? Okay.
Yeah, it makes it easier.
Sure.
For my the MyLab and mastering, I would have to. It wasn't letting me go, like open it because of like the cookies and all that.
Okay.
How else would I be able to get it?
So you're still not able to get in and access it?
No, I was only able to get the stat crunch.
Okay, so that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, Cece. So that is always a problem with Pearson, is they're using like basically late 90s technology with pop-ups, right? Around early 2000s. Most of you were not using the internet back then because you were brand new or not born yet. The internet became absolutely infested with pop-ups. It was absolutely ridiculous. So what most browsers do now by default is they block pop-ups. Okay. Well, Pearson, being they're sort of the biggest person in the education publishing industry, they've decided they don't have to keep up with that. They don't have to rework their stuff. And so unfortunately, that is a problem we have with the Pearson. It's one of my biggest complaints is there's always a few students struggling to get things set up because they can't get in to the computer and get it set up. So here's what I'll tell you for CC and any other students that are struggling with that. Here's a couple things that you should do, and here's probably the order in which you should do them. This is a common thing that happens. I would say in each class, there's always 2 or 3 students where the browser is blocking the pop-ups and it's not letting them into the actual homework to work on. So let me tell you here's a checklist, right? So you can either write this down or just go back into write down a timestamp so that you can go back to where to check this if this pertains to you. But I'm guessing there's at least someone else besides CC who's having the same issue. So first thing you want to do is figure out what browser you're using. Do not use it's not called Explorer anymore. Is it called Edge or something on whatever Microsoft's browser is? Does anyone remember? I think it's called Edge or something like that. Anyways, the 2 browsers that come from the main operating systems, which would be Safari for Mac and would be, I think it's called Edge now for Microsoft, don't use those, right? I would say in general, don't use those. Basically, Apple has set up Safari so that it really fits their system, but it does things that sometimes you don't want it to do. And it's the same thing for Microsoft. They're kind of using it. They use it sort of to pull you into their system rather than necessarily for your browsing. So if you're using either Safari or Edge or whatever it's called, let me look it up here. Is it called? Yeah, I think it's called Microsoft Edge now. If you're using either of those 2 browsers, they play especially poorly with Pearson. So what I would say is try Firefox and try Chrome. Just download them. They're totally free. They don't cost you anything, and they're actually superior browsers. You probably should be using those in general, but obviously it's your computer. It's up to you. But I have a lot of students, as soon as they download Firefox, the whole thing works. Or as soon as they download Chrome, it works. I'd say there's a little more success with Firefox. So sometimes just downloading those new browsers and using those fixes the problem. Okay, but it might not. So you might download Firefox and Chrome, and it still doesn't work inside either one of those. So then what you have to do is figure out the right settings that you need. And that can be a little tricky, and it's hard for me to describe. You come to office hours, and I can try to help you with it, but it's kind of hard for me to know what your computer looks like and remember exactly what to do. But maybe we can screen share or something like that. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Get rid of them. And then right now, like with Firefox, I just downloaded it, so I'm gonna see how that goes.
Okay, great. So, but yeah, that's great. But I'll finish this off just for the people who are still having trouble with that, because I'm betting it's at least a couple people. But that's great. So, once you've tried that, so then try to keep using either Firefox or Chrome or one of the 2. Then, if you're still having trouble, I honestly think the best way to do it is just go into YouTube and Google My Math Lab, Chrome, not working, or something like that, like some kind of phrase like that. You're all basically like YouTube ninjas. You know how to find whatever it is you're looking for and phrase things and hashtag things and all that kind of stuff. So just go into YouTube and come up with a phrase that describes it. My Math Lab, browser not working, or Firefox not working, or something like that. And probably what you're going to see, try to pick the video that's the most recent. Don't pick one from like 5-6 years ago, because the browsers look a little bit different. But I'm sure there's dozens and dozens of videos of people that show you how to go in and change your settings so that it fits, so that it works right for the My Math Lab. Okay, so that would be step 2, is to try to find a YouTube video that's recent, that does that exact thing that you're looking for. You have to sort of think a little bit about the right term to search for on YouTube. Watch the video, see if that works for you. If not, I can meet with you in Zoom, and I can try to help you through it, right? Usually what happens is, when we're in a regular class, students will bring their laptops either to class, or they'll come see me in office hours with their laptop, and then we'll sit down and I'll show them exactly what they need to do in order to change the setting. The problem is, the issue is it's a little harder for me to do that now because like today I'm going to be on campus for my office hours, and I'm not going to have the Zoom capabilities in my office right now. But if you have a laptop, if you're using a laptop and you want to come to campus today, I can try to help you with it. What I will say is I'm probably going to be a few minutes late to my office hours today, hopefully like 10, 15 minutes only, because my vehicle is being worked on. So I'm actually having to ride my bike to school today. So it's going to take me a little bit longer. So if you're there right at 11 o'clock and I'm not there, just give me like 15 more minutes. I'll probably be right along. And I can help you out with that. Otherwise, so remember, I'm on campus from 11 to 2 today. You have to check in with the school and make sure you're, that you get the pass and you get the wristband and stuff. But you're welcome to bring a laptop to campus, and I will try to help you get that all set up. Okay, and then there's another question I'll get to in a second. So make sure you're moving that forward, because you definitely want to be able to move forward with the assignments. I don't want anyone getting any more behind, so I can try to help. Try to help you get set up with that. And at some point we'll get it. We always get it figured out. It's just sometimes it takes a little, it's like the right combination, because, it's weird. We're all using, there's like 2 main operating systems. Some of you might be using Linux, but I suspect at most it's like one of you. But, the 2 main operating systems, like we all use them, but even on different computers, they act differently. And then, Zoom's a perfect example. If you use Zoom on the computer versus Windows versus Mac versus the iPad, they're like completely different programs. You can't even find stuff. Like you're like, oh, on the computer it's up here, and on the iPad the options are down here. It's confusing. So I can try to help you with that. So try those 2 browsers. That's step 1. Then try to find a YouTube video that shows you exactly how to do it, a recent one. And then come to me, and I will try to help you with screen share or something. So don't let this go. Don't like let it go another week or anything like that. We want to get this fixed in the next short period of time so that everyone's able to progress with the homework and that kind of stuff. Okay? Okay, great. Looks like we had a group form in chat over there. That's fantastic. We just had a few more people. Now going to be a little more comfortable with things because they can all work together. So that's great. Do remember now, by October 5th, we want those survey questions in there. Oops, and I should change the name. So I had to delete the first one because it was, as you may remember, I had it due before class started. Some of you were awesome students, and you went in there and tried to do it. Again, I apologize for that. Those of you who'd went in and did that, you're sort of superstars. Good work. But now I'm gonna open it up for the actual questions, right? So I want to talk about those. We do want to get them submitted. This is kind of a slow process. Mainly it's that procrastination issue that we see, right? So I need students to submit their survey questions. It doesn't have to be today, but by October 5th, you really want them in by then, because if we take a long time to, oh wait, I forgot there was one question before we move on. Let me hit that up. Okay, so Haley's asking me a question. I don't know, Haley. Feel free to talk to me in office hours or after class, and I will look at that one grade for you, and we'll see if we can figure out what happened. So it must have been maybe that you left it open and then the due date occurred or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, Haley, I'm not sure what the issue is, but I'll take a look at that with you after class, and we can figure that out. Okay, great. Okay, so for the survey questions, you all can't really start working on the project until you have your results back from the survey. Well, there's 2 pretty important steps that need to happen in order for me to get you the results from the survey. One is I need the questions that you want in the big survey. You're all gonna submit between 5 and 7, 8 questions, depending on what your group decides is the best thing to do. I'm going to put all those questions together into one big survey. Sometimes that survey ends up being only about 80 questions. I've seen it like 130 before, so it just depends. It's not scary, though. I mean, honestly, you can do the whole thing in less than 10 minutes when you take the survey, so it's not It's not like, it's like stuff like what's your age. It's not, you don't have to go like do research to fill it out. But I'm going to create a big survey, and then everyone's going to take it, and then I'll release the results. So 2 things have to be done before I can get you the results, and you can actually start analyzing your results, your data. 1, I need your questions, right? So that's this one right here. The longer it takes us to get the survey questions submitted, it's going to slow us down in this process, and you'll have less of the semester to work on your actual project. But since we're getting into stuff right here in these early chapters, it's really helpful to have your data, because when you learn something in a topic, you can just immediately go and apply it to your project. That's much better than trying to do it 2 weeks later when you've forgotten, like, wait, what is the binomial theorem really telling me? I don't remember. If you do it right at the time, it's just easier that way. Plus, you're more likely to remember because you've worked on it. So we want those survey questions submitted. And then as soon as we get the survey questions submitted, I can create the actual survey where you take the survey, which I should just make sure this is, remove that link there and delete. So it's not published, but I just want to make sure no one can accidentally take that. I'll update this at some point in the near future. Notice how that date's wrong. I'll update this take the survey piece, and then you'll all take the survey. And that's the one that usually people drag their feet on. And I think this is the reasoning, and I'm asking you to be sort of better than what I see a lot of times, which is you don't get points for taking the survey, right? Because in order for me to give you all points for taking the survey, I would have to, and I don't even think you can do this, but what I would have to do is identify who you are in the survey. But I don't like doing that because I want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable answering honestly, right? So I don't want you to go in there and say something which you're afraid is going to get you harassment later, or it's going to, make you feel bad in any kind of way. I want people to just be able to know when I put this information in there, like, people aren't going to know that it's me or whatever. You're just more likely to be honest that way, right? So you don't get points for taking the survey. So what you all need to realize is you're all a group and you all have the same goals, which is to have data with which to do your project. Right? So every one of you is kind of dependent on everyone else in the class to take that survey in a timely manner. If you aren't taking the survey, and it's not submitted or it's not released yet, but once I release it, if you're taking a lot of extra time, then you're holding up everyone else in the whole class. And this kind of happened with my other class right now, where I wanted to release the survey results last week, but of the 30, I think it's 35 people in that class that are still doing homework and participating in the class. 24 of them had taken the survey. That's not really good enough numbers, right? These classes are already on the small side of what we would want for good data. So we really need everyone to do it, right? Your work that you do is going to be much better if you have 35 data points than if you have 25. Right? It sounds like isn't 25 enough? It's not great. Your histograms aren't going to look great. You're not going to be able to make as many conclusions from the shape of your data because it'll be a lot rougher shape. So once that survey is released, I really need everyone to get in there and take it as soon as you can, because once we get the numbers up high enough of people actually having taken it, then I can get you your data, and then you can all start when we learn measures of central tendency, you can apply that to your project. When we learn about dispersion, you can apply that to your project. If I haven't released the results yet, that means in a few weeks or whenever you get the results, you're going to have to come back here and sort of remind yourself what these things are about and then apply it to your project. It's much easier to just have that data and do it at the same time. So that's why it's important that by October 5th, we have all your survey questions in place so that I can create the survey. And hopefully within a week, usually takes students longer, but maybe you'll be the class that's really, really on top of everything. Within a week, I can have your results for you, and then you can start doing the stuff as you go through these future projects. That's the easiest way to do things, right? And in general, when a teacher tells you like this is really the easiest way to do things, a lot of times there's doubt. Students go, I think I have a better way. If I think I have a few things I can skip and I can procrastinate and it'll be easier. It's not. The easiest way to do this project is to do it throughout the semester as you work through these chapters. That is definitely the easiest way to do it. And we want that stuff due October 10th. So what I would like is by October 5th, we have survey questions. Hopefully by maybe the 12th, I can release the survey. And then well before this homework's due, when students are working on chapter 3, hopefully you also have your data from the project that you can be doing those parts of things along the way. Okay? So what's important with the survey questions? I think I talked a little bit about this, but sort of give you a sort of remind everyone, because now we're actually here. We're actually doing it now, right? So you do not have to do, like, you're free. Like, as far as these groups, you're not married to anyone in a project. If a group is not working out for you, you can leave that group. If you feel like you're doing 90% of the work and the other 2 people in the group are not, you can break off and form your own group. So there's kind of an incentive here for everyone to make sure that they're pulling their weight, because, then you're all, first of all, you don't want to be that person that's freeloading, but also the person, if the group dynamics are not working, people might leave, and then you'll have less help to get things done. So don't feel like you have to stay in a group. You're welcome to be in whatever group you want, but it's helpful to be in a group, because then when you have a question, the group can have a discussion about it and try to figure it out. And then I regularly, like in my other class, this is happening. I have a group come to office hours and say, we talked about this thing last night, but we're a little confused. Can you help us with it? Yeah, of course I can. And then we work on it. Okay. So you can do a different topic than your group, but I don't suggest it, right? It's up to you. It will be easier if you've all done similar work. And when you come together to talk about it and you go, is this what your histogram looks like? And someone says, mine, I chose a little bit different bin sizes, but it's more or less the same. Yeah, I think we're doing the same thing. And then you can all, you can check that you didn't make some huge mistake in the way you did something, or that you're doing it wrong or whatever. So you probably want to pick a topic that's the same as your group, although, again, you have some freedom to do what you want. Popular topics, anything related to COVID. I've seen numerous projects where people looked at work life and COVID, where people looked at school life and COVID, right? How many hours how many units did you take before COVID? How many units are you taking now? How many online units did you take before COVID? How many online units are you taking now? What is your preference? Do you prefer online? Do you prefer on ground, right? These kinds of questions, those are all fine. A lot of health questions, exercise questions, eating habit questions, all sorts of stuff from the places and how often, the frequency that you eat at, say, restaurants, or all sorts of stuff. People are coming up with what they want to know. All sorts of exercise habits, all sorts of eating habits. Those are all fine. And other topics as well, right? If there's anything you wonder about, in my other class, I have someone who came up with some really excellent questions about people's opinions on climate change. Great. Those are great questions. Ask people about climate change. Can ask people about, and you're welcome to get into stuff that's a little bit controversial, like, politics, stuff like that if you want. We have to make sure that everything's done in a way where we're doing it sort of professionally, where, it's not going to devolve into a left versus right kind of argument or something like that. Like, try to be unbiased and try to collect opinions and stuff like that. But if you wanted, sometimes people do stuff that overlaps into political areas. That's okay, as long as we're keeping it statistical based, stuff like that. So if there's a topic that you want to ask about, here's your chance to get feedback from 35 people about certain questions, right? That you can figure out what people's opinions are. All right. Now, you have to have at least 5 questions for your group. Okay. And the reason is, if you have any less than these 5 that I recommend, then certain tools will not be available to you for your project. Like, if you don't have 2 quantitative questions, then you're not going to be doing a correlation. That's a pretty big chunk of the class. scatter plot, correlation, regression, all that stuff, you won't be able to do it. So that's kind of, oops, I got blurry somehow. That's kind of a big hole in your, come on, what's going on with my cursor here? That's kind of a big hole in your project if you can't talk about those things. So that's why I recommend the types and number that I'm recommending. Okay, I think we're good now. You want to have at least 2 quantitative questions. First of all, you just should have at least 2 in order to talk about stuff, but also you need at least 2 to do a regression. So they should be related in some way that you think you can kind of connect them. If they're totally different, then it might not be as helpful. But, so like the go-to example I give, shoe size and height, right? You will see a positive correlation of shoe size and height. As people's shoe sizes get bigger, heights get bigger, but it's not like 1-to-1. It's not like you can, you won't be, if you use shoe size to predict people's heights, like, oh, this person's going to be taller because they have bigger shoes. You'll be right most of the time, but not 100% of the time, right? That's what correlation's all about. We haven't learned that yet, but we will get into correlations, that kind of stuff. So you want at least 2 quantitative questions, and you're welcome to have more. I have groups that sometimes do like 8-9 questions. That's okay. That might help you do your project. Probably don't do like 20 questions because otherwise the survey is going to get massive. But, if you don't have to submit exactly 5 questions. You want to do at least 5. But if you do 6 or 7 or 8, that's okay too. It's just going to give you more options when you're putting your project together. Some people go, oh, well, isn't that more work because I have to do more analysis of the data? Not necessarily. If you have 8 questions, that doesn't mean you have to use 8 questions in your project. It just means that when you're doing particular parts of your project, you have choices about numerous things to pull from. So in other words, if you had 4 quantitative questions, then you'll have some choices about the different correlations and regressions that you're trying to do when we get to that point in the semester. Okay, so it's your call. Obviously, make them somewhat related. Don't just pick 5 questions that have nothing to do with each other. They should relate to your topic. So if your topic is on how many units are people taking during COVID before and after the COVID experience, then your question should probably relate to either school or COVID in some way, right? You shouldn't be asking about some other kind of thing. So quantitative, remember quantitative questions, quantity, you're counting something. So how old are you is the question of how many years have you been alive. How tall are you, right? That's a quantity. You're some number of, units tall of whatever the unit is that's being asked. But again, I think I've mentioned this before, you should probably tell people how you want the answer given. So if you're asking about height, if you just say, what is your height? You're going to get at least 3 and possibly 4 different types of answers. You're going to get people who write 5, the word foot, 9, the word inches. You're going to get people who write 5, let's see, I always forget which one it is, 5 dash 9 dash dash. And then you're going to get people who say, oh, I'm 82 inches tall or whatever the height is for that individual. And then you're going to have to go through and you're going to have to normalize all those. You're going to have to, not normalize, you're going to have to translate them all into the same type of data. But if you ask, how many inches tall are you? Then people are probably going to answer in the same way. Okay? So you want to guide people into what type of question they should be asking. Make it clear to them. Avoid questions that you could imagine are going to be hard to analyze statistically. For instance, what is your favorite childhood memory? You're going to get 35 different answers, none of which can be analyzed statistically in any kind of way, right? What is your favorite animal? But say, what is your favorite animal besides a cat or dog? You're going to get probably 30 different answers. You're not going to be able to do much more of those. You're not going to be able to do much analysis on that. So if you have a multiple part question, go ahead and ask the question. Like, what is your favorite animal? Cat, dog, bird, fish, right? Or what is your favorite pet? And you give like those choices. And then people can choose from that, right? So, and you want to think about how you want these questions set up when you're setting these up. One issue I had, because we just did the survey in my other class, like, I don't know, a week or two ago or something. One thing they kept doing was they were overthinking the quantitative questions and setting up like categorical questions. So they would say things like, what was the one that they kept doing? Oh, how many classes? This was a popular one. Like 3 different groups asked this question, and they all did it in the same kind of weird way. How many classes did you take before COVID? And then they would have 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6. Actually, I'll just point this out so that you all don't do the same thing when you're setting up your categories. Make sure your different categories don't overlap. What these groups were doing at first is they would say, how many classes did you take before COVID? 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. Well, notice how 2 is popping up in 2 different categories. So which one are they supposed to click, right? If you're setting up categories, make sure that the answer only appears in one choice so that they know to pick that one choice. So what you could do is, just like if you're asking GPA, this was another one that came up. What is your GPA? 1 to 1.99, 2 to 2.99, 3 to 3.99, and then 4. So see how whatever your GPA is, you only go in one category. You're not saying, what is your GPA? 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. See, that's where it gets confusing, is when there's overlap. So make sure there's no overlap in there. Another one was people were, what was it again? They were asking, I just was talking about it and I forgot. They were asking, the number of classes that you take. If you want to ask the number of classes that they take, just say, how many classes did you take? That's not really a situation where we need to give them categories. That's a numerical quantity, and they're going to tell you, I took 3 classes. I took 5 classes. You don't have to come up with categories for that. So think about your quantitative and categorical questions and ask, what is the best way to ask this? Because some of you will find out after the survey and you see your data results and you go, oh, this data is a mess. We didn't ask this question very well. We could have done better. So put some thought into it now. Make sure you tell people what kind of units you want to do, and then figure out what's the right way to ask a quantitative question, what's the right way to ask a categorical question. For instance, I've had people ask categorical questions poorly too. This whole thing's a learning process. So when I say, this question was put poorly, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. It's just, that's what we're doing. We're here to learn, right? So just see the whole thing as a learning process and try to do your best. But an example is, what's your eye color? Well, eye color is one of those things where people kind of like to have like a fancy eye color. So, if you ask people what their eye color is, instead of people saying green, you're gonna get like a dozen different versions of green. You're gonna get they're emerald, they're hazel, they're like misty sunset or whatever, like some names of like all these fancy names for soaps and colors and stuff that you get now, because people want to have like a fancier name or color sometimes or something. So in that case, you should just ask them, what is your eye color? Brown, blue, green. And then what you can get some people have kind of a pink eye color, right? They have, what's it called? Something chromia, where you have 2 different eyes, and sometimes one's like kind of pink or red, or sometimes they're just different colors. So, in that case, it's much better to just tell people their choice is green, because if you let them fill it in, you're going to get like 6 different versions of green, right? So in that case, you would pick for them. What is your eye color? Brown, blue, green, whatever else there is that people have, pink or something. So just kind of put a little bit of thought into that, because the thing is, once the survey's taken, that's it. We don't take any more surveys in the class. So you really want to make sure that these questions are done properly so that you can use the data and it's helpful to you. What I generally have and what I recommend to you is that after the groups get together, then they will either come as a group or they'll send someone to come ask me questions. So they had questions about their questions, and they come to office hours and say, I want to talk to you. My group decided on some questions. Can I talk to you about them? Of course, let's look at them. right? If you've put in that work already of creating some questions and you tried to do that work on your own and you had those discussions, by all means, bring them to me and let's look at them and I'll give you some feedback. Some groups did really well with their questions, but I still had some feedback and say, this is really good, but what if we tweak this one question right here? What if we change this one to be a little different? And they go, oh, I see why you're saying that. So even there, that's a learning process, right? That's what we're hoping for in this class, is that you learn statistics. It's that learning process of coming to me and showing me what you've come up with. I help you improve it, and you've just learned some. Okay, that's great. I did have a few groups where someone in the group would email me and say, here's our questions. Do you have any feedback? And if it was minor fixes, then I could just, here's some suggestions in a response to the email. Or I would, sometimes I would say, let's have a discussion. Let's meet up. Let's make a time to meet up and talk about your questions, because I just, it doesn't mean that you did a terrible job. It just means there's some, statistics has a lot of subtleties in it, and sometimes it's real hard to get those subtleties across in an email. A conversation can be much better. So I highly recommend that you do that. So to prepare those questions, think about how they should be written. Make sure you're including units. You're not being bossy if you tell people, please answer in this way. It means that your data should more or less be all ready to be analyzed, because everyone's going to give you their height in inches versus, every 4 different formats for height, right? So, if you ask people for inches, the worst you're going to get is some people will just put like 68. And then the next person might put 68 inches, like the word inches. But then that's easy. All you have to do is go down your list, and anywhere someone wrote the word inches, you just delete it. But you'll still have the actual data. That's a lot easier than converting. Let's see, what is 5'3"? How many inches is that? And you have to go through and fix everything. It'll be a much quicker process for you. So please get those done by October 5th. So that gives you some time to work on those. That gives you some time to come to office hours, to email me, whatever you need to do to get some feedback on those questions. But make sure your group has worked on it first, right? Make sure your groups come together, had a discussion, then send me the stuff, and then I'll sort of help you wordsmith the questions a little bit and make sure. Some people are still confused on quantitative versus categorical. I had people bring me really good questions. I said, these are great, but you don't have any quantitative questions in here, so you should fix that. And then they went, oh, I see. So I'm happy to give you that kind of feedback. Had a question on the survey question. I just wanted to see if the dates are wrong since it's part of chapter 3. Let me go back and double check what I've got here. The dates are tricky, and sometimes this messes people up. With the stage we're at, we're trying to get students to fill these in soon, so that we can move forward with the project. So while let's see, the project, the survey questions are due October 5th. They're at the end here. Survey questions summary is. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, oops, I thought that I had undone all of these. I went through specifically to not repeat that process. Did anyone fill this one out? No, good. Okay, yeah, don't do that yet because we haven't done it. You can see I went through and I unpublished it, like project visuals. I unpublished those so students weren't accidentally doing them ahead of time. But it looks like I missed one here with the question survey summary. Just don't do those. The unpublished ones means I'm still figuring out when they'll be due, because I can't assign those until you have your data, and you won't get your data until you've given me questions and taken the survey. So there's a little bit of this like zone in the next couple of weeks where the due dates will depend on how quickly you move as a class. And, sometimes in classes, there's a tendency for students to think, oh, if we drag our feet, that's better. It's actually not. You want more time to work on your project, not less. So the sooner you move on this, it's actually going to be less stressful for you because you'll have more time to spread out the project work, rather than if we take an extra 2 weeks, then that's 2 weeks less that you have to slowly work on the project, and you're going to be working on it at a faster pace. Yeah. So I'll unpublish the survey question summary. Don't do that yet. We'll get there when thanks for pointing that out. We'll get there. I think I have them all now unpublished so that you're not accidentally doing future stuff. Where's the correlation one? Oh, here it is. Correlation's way up here. Okay. Just making sure that one was not published as well. Right. Okay. So we're actually almost out of time, but I'm glad that we spent the whole time talking about that because it's super important, right? We're sort of at this stopping zone where we cannot progress. As far as, your project is worth half of your grade in here. We can't really progress with that until we have your questions submitted and you've all taken the survey, or nearly all of you. We'll probably have one or two people not make it, but I can't wait around or I can't submit or release the results if we still have 5 people in the class who haven't done it, because it's all, like I say, if we get all 35 people or whatever we have in this class to take the survey, that's still the bottom end of what we would want, right? So because small sample sizes make it a lot harder to do statistics. So we really want to make sure we get everyone doing that. So please try to have your questions done by the 5th. So what that means is don't wait till the 5th to talk to me, right? Talk to me before the 5th. Get your groups together. What is the 5th? What is October 5th? I forget. Is that a Sunday off the top of my head? October 5th is a Tuesday. Okay, so you'll see me on Monday before that. So next Monday, you can still do that. So what I would say is try to work on that stuff and then don't wait till the last minute. So get together with your groups. Some of you, talk to me this Wednesday. Come to me with your questions if you're a group that's on top of things. If you want, and you don't have to come talk to me about your questions. You can just submit them. But if you're a group that wants to go, we'd like a little feedback on our questions. Come to office hours this week. Come to office hours early next week. Remember, my Monday office hours are not online. They're on campus, which makes it a little harder. And then your stuff is due Tuesday, although I do have a Zoom office hour on that Tuesday. Okay, so basically it's the same. Sometimes I'm like a broken record. Don't procrastinate. If you're waiting till the last minute and then, I'll get emails on October 5th at 9 o'clock at night asking me about their survey questions. Well, I can tell you I'm not going to check my email at 9 o'clock at night on October 5th, right? Because you have a week to come to me, or more than a week, to come to me and get that feedback. So I'm happy to help you with that, but I generally don't check my emails late at night or even late afternoon, like 4 or 5 o'clock is probably too late. So try to get if you want feedback from me, you don't have to get it. If you want feedback from me, try to do it, at least a day earlier so that we can actually have a discussion and we're not rushed, and I can get back to you before it's due and stuff like that. Okay? So, again, we spent the whole class talking about this, but it's actually really important because the better job you do with these questions, it's going to affect how challenging the rest of your project is. Really good questions now is going to make the rest of things a lot easier. Bad questions now is going to make it a lot more challenging to do the rest of your project. Okay? So thanks, everybody. I'm going to close down the YouTube stream. You're welcome to hop into Zoom and ask me any kind of questions you can. Remember, I'm likely to be 10 to 15 minutes late today to office hours because I have to ride my bike to school rather than drive like I normally would. So if you're meeting me there, might not be there till 11:15 or something. Otherwise, I'll see you all later. Okay, thanks, everybody.